hot start.
I can't find a way to get comfortable in these things. I want to lean back, but
I feel like
to also be in the camera. Welcome to another episode of Performance Enhancing Discussions. I'm Dr. Jamie Phillips. I own Ghost Rehab, and I am a hockey injury specialist. I'm joined with...
I'm Coach Ben Vucci. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Ghost Rehab Performance. Also specialize in hockey, former college goalie.
I feel like when I introduce myself, if I don't lead with former pro, people like tune out. No one really cares that no one cares about our education, but they're just like, oh, you played? Therefore, you know what's going on. Today's discussion, I love this. Hopefully this stirs the pot within the strength and conditioning community and hockey training community. Squats.
Yep, all different kinds of squats.
All different kinds of squats. Growing that juicy peach emoji. So I'm gonna put, you're my head strength coach, so I'm gonna ask you questions. I'll let you lead it off. See this every time. What are your opinion on, let's go with the biggest one first, back squats?
So my goal is to obviously get the athletes stronger, but they also are going to have a life after hockey, whether that comes in 25 years or 5 years, it doesn't really matter. And obviously we want them to stay as healthy as possible. I think it's important for them to know how to do everything so that when they get to juniors or college or wherever they go, they're not caught off guard, they don't know how to do something. So teaching it, I think, is something that needs to be done. Now, specifically with back squat, I like the back squat to start. I like to progress from back squat into front squat into Zercher squat. It's kind of like up the chain of what sucks the most in regards to how I program and train these athletes. And I like the back squat because it is the easiest to teach for me, but it's also the easiest for them to hold. Trying to do any sort of front rack position with limited lat mobility or wrist mobility is terrible, and most of them end up here gripping the bar, trying to grip 135 pounds or whatever they're gripping in just their palms. And they're not able to get their full range of motion on that, and it looks sloppy, and there's cause for injury there. Now, the argument is the load, like where the load sits in the body, and yes, like hockey players are not, the load of where they're producing force is not from the backside of their body, but that doesn't mean that knowing how to back squat to progress that into a different kind of squat isn't good, because they still need strong legs, and if they don't have the form, the technique, the knowledge on how to front squat or how to Zercher squat, there's no point in not squatting. They need to squat, and now while we could squat 5x15s on a goblet squat, that also kind of minimizes what their scope of knowledge is, and when they get to that next level, they're not going to be able to perform what they need to perform.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and I'm gonna start to ask you some questions, but I'm gonna give my thoughts on it as kind of the injury guy. There's a few things, like we said, we're trying to prepare for life. When we look at, we train primarily youth athletes. We have college and pros, but they go off to their teams in the summer, and season and off season, we have a lot of youth athletes. It's important for us to prepare them for almost anything, especially when they move off, whether that is to a junior team, whether that's a college or high school, and their strength coaches there are asking them to do things like a back squat. We want them to be proficient in those movements. We want them to understand how to perform them safely. In a lot, especially when a lot of these players move on to colleges, most colleges don't have a designated hockey strength coach. They will have the shared strength coach among the university who trains all sorts of teams. So if you're getting someone who maybe is very football heavy or American football heavy in their methodology, they're going to be squatting a lot. And
that's the only kind of football, just throwing that out
there. And so, my train of thought. And so, if you have an athlete that will tell that strength coach, I don't back squat. My trainer says not to squat. You're going to end up either being not there's going to be repercussions in that. You're going to be that athlete that the strength coach is then going to pick on or single out to do some things or get yelled at, or you're just going to learn. When it comes to safety, like everything, every single exercise in the gym, on the ice, anything you do, there's always inherent risk. So it's important for us and all coaches to be able to know how to teach it and be able to monitor the safety of things. Now, if we take an athlete who is 12 years old and we just say, find your max, like they don't know what that means. But if we say, grab the bar and squat it 5 times, if you had to give me a rating out of 10, how hard that was, and they say that was an 8. Okay, we know that the bar is pretty close. And then we can also look at form breakdown. So one of the things that we do is we don't allow our athletes to progress in weight until they have their form for all the reps is excellent. So they're squatting ATG or ass to grass, whether that's heels elevated or heels flat for whatever set, was set of 5 or 8. And then once the coach gives them the thumbs up, then they can add a small amount of weight. And if their form breaks down, then they're not allowed to progress to that weight until they hit that weight for that set number of reps. Loading, this is a big one. So the pendulum kind of swings back and forth. If you go back to original strength conditioning, mostly pioneered by the Soviets and the East Germans, a lot of squatting, a lot of jumping, all those good things. Then in more modern times, so we're going to talk about like early 2000s into 2010s and stuff, there was this idea that everything needs to be like strictly unilateral, and teaching an athlete to squat or to deadlift or to even bench press was some sort of faux pas, because I'm not really sure of the reasoning. I understand that if you are trying to minimize the risk of things, then you're going to choose the easiest, safest exercises, but not choosing the easiest, safest exercises doesn't always equate to creating the best athletes or getting the best adaptations. Athletes, as we know, hockey players, as we know, are primarily quad dominant. The anterior, so the front part of their body, tends to be the stiffest, the most powerful, where we see the most injury, well, not necessarily the most injuries, but with that, we also need to be able to counteract that and have posterior strength. We need that low back where that takes the most amount of force, or the load is put through the low back. It is important for it to be strong for several reasons. One, it's just having a strong, resilient body is going to make you harder to break on the ice. If you go into the corner and someone body checks you, there's going to be some load placed on your low back. If you cannot withstand that load, you are going to get hurt. So with that more 2010s change of strength training, where everything was avoid loading the spine, we're gonna be, tiptoe around these athletes as if they're fragile butterflies, we're starting to see a lot more injuries on the ice, on the field, due to the lack of axial loading, or axial meaning like the skeleton, the main part of the skeleton, loading. So if we as strength coaches can safely teach our athletes and safely load those with a variety of different exercises and modalities, we are going to have more resilient athletes that are going to prevent injury longer, going to perform better, and be able to extend their careers hopefully longer. Now, that was long-winded, so
I wanted to add to that though, because loading the skeleton in general, that is what takes the most impact, like in a hockey hit, and we're talking about hockey, but any sort of contact that is where the brunt of the force gets taken. And the more that we can load that with control and build strength around that, the better for the athlete, because they're going to be able to better absorb and take impact on the ice, whether that's from a player, whether that's literally just falling, or in a goalie standpoint. I mean, the puck doesn't hit you that hard, but you still have to absorb in some capacity.
And goalies, where's the load mostly in goalies?
Mostly in the low back and hips.
In the low back and hips. My low back, we bark in a 5-on-3 penalty kill. My goalies come in, low back and hip, low back and hip. I ask them to squat, can't squat. They push their butt out all the time. They throw the bar forward. Okay, this is a great way to build up strength and endurance in the low back. Sorry, I'll let you go.
But that's the thing, and I'm a big proponent of moving and strengthening the spine, the low back, the whole posterior chain. there's not many ways that are better than to do a back squat. And like Jamie said, I mean, it might not be the safest way, but there's an inherent risk in stepping foot in a gym in general. There's weights, there's med balls flying around, people are jumping. It's an athletic environment where there is a possibility of injury. There's a possibility of me getting injured when I lift, there's a possibility of Jamie getting injured when he lifts. But done under the watchful eye of a coach who knows what they're doing, or done with the right intent, it's going to be very hard to mess something up.
Athletes, like, there's a lot, and like, I want to touch on the unilateral versus bilateral. So like one doing single leg stuff only versus doing bilateral things. First thing, those are not mutually exclusive. No. I hate when people are like, nah, we only do single leg stuff. You can and should do both, because yes, when you stride, you are primarily pushing off of one leg, but the other leg is balancing. Think about your stance when you take a face off. You are on two legs. Mm-hmm. Think about when you go into the corner and you battle for a puck. You're on two legs. So you're going
to be harder to knock off 2 feet than you are one.
You should be doing both things. Like, that's not, like, it's not a one or the other. It should be doing both things. Just like for hockey players, we shouldn't only train in the sagittal plane. We should be doing things that are multidirectional, but we also should be training in the sagittal plane, which is another huge argument that people get into that drives me crazy. Second part, we talk about inherent risk. Like, I blew out my MCL doing rear foot elevated split squats. Blew it up. Thing was just swelled up to the size of a softball. I thought my season was over. And I was doing a rear foot split squats, which is the exercise that every anti-back squat coach will always be like, no, we're going to do rear foot. There is inherent risk in everything. Front squats. I love doing front squats. I take a different approach than Coach Ben, where I usually go front squat, back squat, Zercher with youth athletes. But again, we think about front rack, wrist, opportunity for wrist injuries, opportunity for the bar falling forward, opportunity for collapse in front. Like, there are those things, but our job.
And if you, especially with a front squat, the reasoning that I go back squat first is because if you have improper form on a back squat, I believe that it has less load through the low back than if you have improper form on a front squat, because it's much easier to round your low back and have the bar fall forward on you. And I believe there's a bigger risk of front squatting causing low back pain.
Yeah, I agree with both. For me, my rationale for that is the front. If you can teach a front squat well, it kind of builds a little bit more stability.
100%.
But I
think it's two sides.
It's easier. Honestly, the back squat is an easier exercise to learn. It's an easier exercise to learn. So that's why that's why when Ben started with back squat, I didn't tell you like, no, we're not doing back squat. Like, it's easier to learn. I get it. We're making sure the load is safe. We talk about range of motion. We make sure the kids, because they are kids and kids that do dumb things, we just make sure they understand that this isn't an ego lift, and then they have to be approved by us before they can move up in weight. Even from the bar to add a 25 or a 45, they have to be approved by us, because that's our job. We talked about risk, we talked about unilateral, bilateral.
I was thinking just inherent risk. Like, I jumped over a hurdle and my ankle swelled up the other day. I have horrible ankles, but like, it's like the least amount of load possible.
Right there, we should stop jumping. Hockey players, don't you jump on the ice? No, we shouldn't jump. It's our job is we are trying to build very good athletes.
Yes, it's about, in that sense, it's about force reduction, and that's what you get out of a back squat is you get some level of strength and you get a level of force reduction. And now granted, the variation in the weight is going to determine exactly what is being produced the most there, but yeah, for lack of better terms, I guess that's how I'm going to phrase it. But just because you need to be strong on both legs. I see, for example, I've seen an athlete in here where their hips shift to one side because they're much more dominant on one leg, and maybe that's an athlete that we have to take and do rear foot elevated split squats with, because they are more dominant with their right leg than their left leg. But also at the same time, maybe some other athletes don't have the balance for that.
Yeah.
So
it's always ebbs and flows. We're just giving our opinion and our expert opinion on these things. And when you said it's all forces, injuries is almost all forces. And we think about And another thing we didn't talk about is just like the torso bracing and stability that comes with performing heavy compound lifts performed well. Like whether that's, we do a lot of trap bar deadlifts, but we also do straight bar deadlifts. We also do clean deadlifts. We do, hopefully we can add in some snatch deadlifts. We can add in all these things. And when performed well, it teaches an athlete how to brace their core and to get the core strong. And that's going to translate to those puck battles. So when someone's knocking you off, like if you aren't able to get in that athletic position and have strong abs, hip flexors, QLs, low back, all the multifidi and erector spinae group, all the way up the back, if that's not strong, you're going to get knocked off the puck really easily. And so by doing compound lifts like that safely under appropriate load, we can progress an athlete to get stronger overall so that they are harder to beat up the puck. If you're a goalie, you're going to be able to hold that stance a lot longer in high pressure situations. You're not going to fatigue as much. You're going to have your hip flexors are going to hurt less because they're not taking the brunt of the load. The same people that champion all this like unilateral stuff only are still the same people that are also going to champion asymmetries and stuff. Well, yeah, we can do both. You want to be able to move, like you said, with hip shift. Okay, an athlete has, let's just say their left side is more dominant, so we're going to do single leg stuff until there's a little bit more of a balance. And then can their body contract and neurologically produce the united amount of forces in symmetry when doing bilateral stuff? If there's not, then it's like, okay, we have to figure out why. Because if they can't do that, when they have to be able to T-push and stop, there's going to be some sort of disconnect here in the nervous system. So it's not, there's so much more that goes into it. The back squat fear-mongering drives me crazy because it's one of those ones, like if you don't want to teach the back squat, like you don't want to take the time to learn and teach a back squat, you don't have to.
No.
We do, we choose to. And we choose that for all the athletes. We want them to be the strongest athletes that they can be.
And I think that a lot of what gets caught up is in the single leg and the unilateral stuff, where, like, yes, Jamie touched on it earlier, where you're pushing with one foot at a time. Whether you're running, whether you're skating, whether you're pushing laterally as a goalie, does not matter. Like, propelling yourself in a forward plane of motion, you are taking a step with one foot at a time. I think that's where a lot of that gets caught up. But obviously everybody wants their athletes to be strong, fast, and powerful. And to be fast, you have to be powerful, and to be powerful, you have to be strong. There's many ways, but one of the best ways to get strong is to squat in general. And it's gonna be very beneficial for them in the long run. Maybe, a lot of people talk about knee injuries too, but again, done properly, we're not going to see those. And like you said, if you don't want to take the time to teach a back squat because you don't have the care or the knowledge or whatever it may be that you don't want to teach it, that's almost a knock on your athletes because they don't know how to do one of like the three most basic lifts in the gym.
Squatting is
it's a foundational
pattern of human beings. Like, look at any baby, they squat. Yeah, there's no bar on their back, but they have that movement. Comes to knee things, oh God, that's, you're going to get me down a rabbit hole. And I'm gonna tag the study somewhere up here in the YouTube video, which means I have to go back and edit this. But when we look at Olympic sports or sports in general, can you guess, one, which sport has the most injuries, and two, which sport has the least injuries?
I'm gonna say weightlifting has the least.
Weightlifting has the least, so clean and jerk, snatch, and literally their sport is just exercise, so they squat every day. They rarely do like athletic-y type lifts, and they get past their pre-teen ages. Guess which sport has the most? Gen Pop. Actually, yeah, Gen Pop.
Soccer?
Close. Running. Literally going out for a jog has the most likelihood of injuries. So are we going to tell our athletes they shouldn't go run?
No, I make them sprint here all the time.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones, it is a nuanced discussion. when every exercise has inherent danger, but when performed correctly and safely with the proper load, the proper guidance, you're good. Because another thing too is a lot of our athletes will go on to junior teams where their training is, here's a gym membership.
Yeah.
And here's a program. And maybe they get that program from someone that makes them back squat. I want them to know how to squat safely. Like, I think that's really important. I don't want them to do something and then get hurt later on. So if we can teach them now how to do it well, perfect.
And it does prepare them, because a lot of, exercise is on the upswing, obviously, in just general population, and there's gyms everywhere, and there are people who I'm one of those people who go crazy if I don't lift 4 times a week. So granted, it's part of my job, so that's definitely helpful, but I know people that I'm friends with outside of this world, the fitness world or the strength and conditioning world, that like and enjoy exercising every day, and they don't really have a need to front squat or to Zercher squat. They will, but if some of our athletes, not everybody's going to go to the NHL, unfortunately. As much as I would love that, there is going to be a life after hockey, and if they want to continue to be in shape and be fit and be strong, they're probably going to want to do the easiest squat, and the more knowledge that I can give them, the better.
And then the last one, and we'll talk about a separate video where we talk about muscle size and hypertrophy and like mobility, because everyone gets that wrong. One of my go-to exercises for athletes, or especially for goalies specifically, but all athletes to increase their mobility, is just to sit in a squat for like 5 minutes. That does more to build hip range and strength than almost any exercise. And sometimes, and once they get to the point where they can do it body weight, I have them put a bar on their back and sit upright in an ass to grass squat for 60 seconds, building up to 5 minutes. And the athlete's mobility goes through the roof when you do that. And then when you can start to add weight to that and they can hold it, now they're getting end range strength, stability, isometric strength, increasing range. And that's one of the ways that I can make athletes incredibly flexible, is with a squat. Not like, I love doing 90-90, all the FRC, kin stretch stuff. I haven't found anything that beats just a long, isolated, deep squat to build lower body mobility. Anything you want to add?
You should squat.
You don't have to squat a house.
No, but you should perform the movement pattern. Like Jamie said, even babies do it. It's one of the 5 basic functional movement patterns.
Start with the bar, or start body weight. And once body weight's good, try the bar, try a women's bar, try a kid's bar. And then once that's good, add some weight, and add a little bit of weight. And then when your form breaks down, be like, okay, this is the weight. I need to make sure I can do 10. I need to be able to do 5 sets of 10 at the same form, and then I can add weight. Boom. You're not going to get hurt doing that. You're going to get hurt when you go, okay, I'm going to jump a lot of weight because my buddy or my teammate is doing a lot of weight and I want to try to impress them and I want to boom. That's how you get hurt. The same thing goes if you're doing a single arm dumbbell bench press. If you can only do single arm dumbbell bench press 45s, but your teammate's doing 65s, and you grab it and your elbow dislocates and it has a posterior dislocation. It's the same thing.
You drop it on your teeth and
drop it on your
parents
teeth.
Get real mad.
It's the same thing. And we've seen athletes drop the lightest dumbbells. Our lightest dumbbells are at 5 pounds. We've seen some of our athletes like struggle to single arm. We have to start somewhere. We have to start safe. So with those athletes, we find our 2.5 plates and we learn how to do it. Or we take a 10-pound plate and we do floor presses. We decrease the risk of injury. But everything should be performed safely. Thank you guys for watching, listening, however you're viewing this. If you do have questions that you want us to answer, let us know in the comments. Send this to a hockey player, a parent, a strength coach, whatever, who might be anti-back squat. If they want to argue with us, they're more than welcome to shoot us an email. We'll get them on. We'll do a live stream. We'll go toe to toe. Thanks everyone for listening to our PED chat. We'll talk to everyone next week. Pretty good.
It was. That was much more concise than the last one. I think we were both a little pissed off.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing.